Welcome to episode 88 of the Sports Geek podcast. On this week's podcast, I catch up with Pearse Connolly, Seat London speaker, to talk to him about media developments with the Norwegian Football Association.
Welcome to the Sports Geek podcast, the podcast built for sports digital and sports business professionals. And now, here's your host, who has attended 12 games at MLB stadiums. What's your number? Sean Callanan.
Thanks, DJ Joel. That's right. My name is Sean Callanan from Sports Geek, and you're listening to the Sports Geek podcast, episode 88. Trying to get back in the swing of things with the podcast. I know I have been a little bit lackadaisical on the weekly release, but getting back into it, I've got a whole bunch of interviews that I have now got queued up. So back on a weekly schedule, and we're actually going to pick an actual day, and I think it's going to be probably Wednesdays or Thursday. We will get a day nailed down and be consistent on that day. Now that I've got a process, and that's part of the reason for the slight delay in this one. I've been getting my team together around editing and producing the podcast. So with no further ado, Pearse Connolly was a speaker at Seat London. He is from the Norwegian Football Association. He gave a terrific presentation at Seat. It was one of my favourites. I went back to listen back to it, but unfortunately it was one of the sessions I didn't actually record. His session was how Norwegian football is putting fan experience in the centre of business, and very much fan focused with everything he is doing at Norwegian football, and following similar models that are happening in the US. So here is Pearse Connolly, Director of Business Development for the Norwegian Football Association, on the Sports Geek podcast. Very happy to welcome a mate of mine who was at Seat London all the way from Norway, Pearse Connolly, Director of Business Development for the Norwegian Football Media. Pearse, welcome to the Sports Geek podcast.
Thank you very much, Sean. Great to be here.
First of all, I just wanted to get a bit of background on how you came into the role and tell us a little bit more about the setup at Norwegian football.
Sure. I guess the accent might give it away first, but I'm not really Norwegian. So I'm originally Irish and moved up here. But I worked for 12 years in Telenor, which is the big telco up here in pay TV, really, and the whole shift to digital and interactive TV. And then within that role, I started to do some rights acquisition. And then Telenor, together with a broadcaster, bought all the rights for Norwegian football in 2006. So I started to work on that, and then which was a great project, really. And then I got the invite to come to the other side of the table. And in 2008, the association and the league here set up a company called Football Media. They pooled all their collective rights. So there's no real argument anymore between who owns what rights and where the money goes. It's well defined where the split is. So I came in there to really start up the company, to build the platform that we use, and then to move into business development and strategy, which is what I've been doing for the last couple of years.
So to liken it to the US model, and it is one that is well replicated on what Major League Baseball have done with Major League Baseball Advanced Media, in that they've split off, and it's a media technology company that's servicing everything Major League Baseball. Is that a similar model and something that you've sort of looked at?
Certainly. It came really out of an argument more than anything else between the league and the association, and then they realised that the best way to solve that was to pool all the rights and to go actually from just selling the rights to doing the same sort of thing that they're doing in the States for a while now as well, is to actually look at producing a lot of the content and enabling other non-traditional broadcasters to come in as rights buyers. I guess that's one of the big drivers, to show that you can actually, we did it in 2008 to an IPTV company, to a web company. They have no broadcast experience, had no studio, no commentators, no graphics abilities. So we had to provide a full service for them, and it kind of just grew from that you end up doing more than the 2 times 45 minutes, you start to do editorial programming. The last thing we've done is built our own studio and won the contract to produce all the European qualifiers for another broadcaster. And it kind of builds out, so you get some momentum going. And the next thing we'd like to do is to help other sports associations here in Norway as well to do the same sort of thing as we do. The strategy from the board was pretty simple. It said that we have to strengthen our position in the market. And the best way to do that, we always say, is to be the best provider of your own content.
Yeah, and it is a model that we're seeing, I guess, replicated around the world. I've had a few leagues sort of follow the same model, and it once you are producing the content, you're not at the behest of media outlets and things telling your story. You get to tell it the way you want.
Exactly, and I mean that's a key part for us. That now that we have both a platform to be able to do this, and all the developments in digital allow us to do that much more than previously. And it spurs on other things that we realized that we had a pretty mediocre brand and identity, so we just run a big project to do that, to lift that to sort of internationally the top quality level. We had help from UEFA, which was great to enable us to do that, and a really good design agency here. So now we feel that we've both got the platforms to do this, the business strategy, and a fantastic brand. And with the sort of youth team that we have in Norway coming through, it really helps as well, because everybody's fed up with all the old guys who were there, and there's a whole new generation of players coming through who both understand the whole sort of new media landscape, if we want to call it that, and can be very active with us in it as well. So the timing's been really good. As you say, there's a lot of other people doing this around the world, and I think it is a question of just the risk, taking the risk and saying we'll actually go and do this, because it certainly paid off for us. We'd never go back to just purely selling the rights. There's no way back for us.
And I guess that really ties in, quite well into what you discussed at SEAT, where the topic of your presentation at SEAT London was, putting the fan experience at the centre of your business. So how has that media play helped you effectively enact that strategy?
Certainly, I mean we've seen a huge amount of development, and it's very easy to get sort of carried away on doing lots of small stunts or the latest technology, or you have to be on this platform, have to be on that platform, and then realize that what is it you're actually providing. So we had a really big project started by our CEO Kjetil Siem, and the CEO of the association, and the CEO of our company, who's called Knut Christom, and they said, look, let's go back to the basics here and ask that question: why do people come to football matches? And there's a whole set of simplistic answers, but really, when you start to dig down into it, it's a very complex question. And we came up with these ideas of identity, how there's all this mythology, rites of passage, roles of everything in it. And it became, wow, we have to do something with this. And then we decided that instead of doing stuff like just digital stunts, let's work it into a strategy that actually says coming to the live match has to be the best thing. So being at the stadium live is the ultimate thing that we want to do. Even though we sell the media rights and want to please our media partners, it's much better for them to see camera positions with more bums on seats than empty seats. That's not a good product. And by putting the sort of match day experience central, we had a peak in 2007, and then it dipped, and now it's on the way up again. And we think the things that we're doing to actually make the match day experience better are helping that. And that's a central part of our strategy going forward as well, to always think that whatever you do, digital or physical, signage, music, everything has to be tied into the live match day experience.
Yeah, I mean, it is vital, and I think it's something I think teams are becoming better connected with, both when the technology is getting rolled out, the fact that stadiums are getting connected and things like that, but really understanding that one of the big trends at the minute is experiential marketing and helping people have an experience. And sports had that for hundreds of years. Like you said before, the identity that is being a sports fan and going to a game is so intrinsic to a sports fan, and I really love that's the bit I loved about your presentation, is not being distracted by the trinkets and the stunts of digital, but how can you amplify both the people who are there, but also amplify the experience for the people there using some of these techniques or tactics.
Because what we all really want to do, I guess, is we've cooked it down to this call it our digital strategy. It fits into an overall one. But really the digital strategy about the live experiences is to increase the vibe. And we couldn't put it more simpler than that. And really the vibe is that shared experience that you get at the stadium. And there's a whole lot of theory behind this, and that's the really good thing when you start to get into it. There's the theory from Campbell of the monomyth, that every story that can ever be thought of cooks down to a set passage of a hero's journey, as they call it. And it worked for George Lucas, as I said, doing Star Wars. He built it on that model. It works for us. We have our own model now for doing it for match day. And really what it cooks down to is, how do you get people from being whether you're a doctor, a lawyer, a plumber, a bus driver, into the mode of being a fan? What are the things that help you do that? The dressing of the stadium, the digital interaction, some of the aspects of scarves, uniforms, they all have a central role to play in that, to make you a fan, and then to increase that sort of collective vibe, we call it, so as you can actually do the singing, do the chanting, because you can have a full stadium, and if people aren't in that vibe mode, it's still a pretty boring experience. And it's I think it's, as you say, it's a big trend for experiential marketing. There's still a big debate about is brand really what you should be talking about, and the experience is part of that? Or my view would be that brand is a toolkit to help you deliver the experience, because what I've seen from brands and brands toolkits, they don't really tell you how to deliver the experience. They can't really evaluate the experience. But I'm sure brand guys would have a different opinion than that. But what we're really trying to do is to make sure that when you get to the stadium, you're in the right mood to really share an experience with other people. Because there aren't too many other places you do that anymore. And we have to make sure that sports, and for us, football, is one of the defining experiences that you will have. And not just one time. It has to be over the course of a lifetime. So if it's club, it's the seasons. For us in the national team, we used to promote games on an individual basis almost, and not talk about the qualifying campaign to get to the Euro or to get to the World Cup. And now everything that we'll do will be communicating that journey. So for Norway, we're an underdog on a quest, and the quest is to get to the finals, and every team will have their own sort of story. And then you start to see, okay, you have a digital campaign. How does that fit in? Does it fit in? And if it doesn't, don't do it. And it also, if I can jump into another thing, when you have these sort of values that you want to increase the vibe, comes up with some really tough decisions that you might have to make, because, as you say, we're wiring up the stadiums, and that's really great, just to get coverage and to do a whole lot of really nice interaction and engagement elements. But should you allow fans to watch video during the match? I'm of the opinion no. At present, and really it's because of the value that we have a value that says solidarity. Samhold is the word in Norwegian, but when you're at the game, you should be sharing it with others. And I think there's a sort of technological determinism that would say if you allow people to watch video, they will do it. And then you have people, at a football game, a soccer game. We're not talking American football, American sports with lots of stoppages, but a soccer game. I really want people to be involved in watching the game rather than watching their mobile. There's plenty of other things we can use the mobile for, whether it's an accelerometer to make a Mexican wave, or some ambient stuff that can just tell you short stats that you can glance at. But maybe not watching the video for a 30-second clip. I don't think during game time that really adds to the experience. But some of it's a little bit controversial, and we'll have to find out if there's a real demand from people there. Then we probably have to give it to them.
Yeah, it is a balance. I mean, I think it is a sport by sport thing. I mean, what you were just saying there about, having fans pull their phone out and video, because it is so hot and it is something that the fans are craving. But yeah, to me, I'm in agreement with you in that it doesn't fit for some sports in that continuous mode, and football is in that continuous mode. My native code of Australian rules is in that same mode. And I lean, to what Mark Cuban was saying, early on, of he doesn't want the people to pull their phone out because he wants them to be immersed in the experience. But it is a mix of finding the gaps and finding the spots where the phone can enhance the experience, because you don't want to detract from the live experience. I wanted to touch on those efforts around match day. Are there any particular campaigns or tactics, or even just little snippets of things that you think you've done from a digital point of view that help increase the vibe and get the fans in the mood around stadiums and things like that?
Yeah, one really simple one is the the screamometer. That's worked great for us. Stupidly simple. Everybody scream into their phone, and the app just measures the decibels, and we link it into a graphic on the big screen, and then you can get stadiums to compete against each other. We have games that go at the same time, so you have the different fans trying to compete against each other, and it seems like a daft idea, but it works really, really well. There's others in those territory as well that you want to keep doing that are very, very simple. Very, very low barrier to entry to it. So the very simple stuff that we know, tying up stats, we can say for every game, because we know the fixture's going back for, well, if not 100 years, for enough to make it a viable stat, to say that if the team Viking are playing the team Rosenborg, then on average, Viking will score in the 42nd minute. Do you think that's going to happen or not? And you make a little drama moment out of that. Now is when they normally score. Shout for your blue team. And these are things that we want to do more of, uncovering the structure of the game from the big data and making a dramatic layer of drama or a layer of engagement over the game based on those things. If he comes on as a sub, we normally score. If we go down to 10 men, we bounce back. Those sort of things that every sports analyst knows, but we don't use them as an engagement factor to heighten the vibe. We tend to do it just as a stat. And I think that's one of the big things that I want to see next, is to go from stats to engagement.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, because it is just a little bit of it's almost an Easter egg inside a sports event. It's a nice surprise. They're not expecting it. It's not in that traditional not in that traditional form, and not those traditional stats. But it can be really pushed out. And would that be just pushed out to people that are in the stadium as, again, to sort of value add to that experience, because you're in the stadium? It's something that only gets pushed out to those people.
Yeah, that would be the starting point, is that it's purely for the people. Make something that's different. You have to be here. So we have, for the upcoming national team games, we have a couple of ideas around augmented reality. So you're into this idea that there's no dead media anymore, that your ticket becomes a trigger for an AR experience, that you can deliver a dedicated highlights package. That we have done stuff like bringing the history of the Norwegian team. So in the 1936 Olympic team, we have a couple of AR things now. It's almost like bringing the museum to life. You can scan various elements and get the backstory. The most famous moment probably ever in Norwegian national team history is when a guy called Rekdal scored a penalty against Brazil. So we have his boots, and you scan his boots and you see the penalty shot and a little backstory from him. And they're things that you only get at the stadium. And we'll do more and more of them. So we'll start to segment as well. So for the VIP boxes, they get a dedicated experience on match day that's primarily delivered in a digital fashion. We're able to produce a lot more content now as well. So when we have the team members are producing a lot more that we can just channel into the match day experience. And I think that's the same for everybody. There's so much content that we have now. It would never go out in a broadcaster's stream. The director's never going to use it all. They might have a 2 or 3 second clip or a 20-second tiny little feature, but we have all that content, so we can package it in a different way and provide it to people primarily on match day, and then afterwards, as we, along with everybody else, are implementing CRM, that we know if you're a ticket buyer who hasn't been to the last couple of matches, we can sweeten things for you by giving you some extra content as well. But the big thing for us is where we're really looking for, and there's an enormous amount going on. It's just stunning, the amount of technological advancement and service and advancement at the moment, is to see how do digital devices help us increase that shared experience. Can they do it at all? Is it just, can a mobile phone replace or augment the big guy beating the drum or the big guy blowing the trumpet? And that's where that's our like key question. And one of the things we're doing, hopefully, to answer it, is this whole idea of service design, where we're doing service mappings and service journeys, giving fans a very, very clear task, and giving other people to say, right from the moment you decide to buy your ticket, to map that journey. We've been through one iteration of it where we improve lots of the small things, but now we want to lift that up to a level that we say, how do you improve your sort of your identity with the Norwegian national team by the elements that we can do, both digital and both physical.
So you've got the national team and the leagues, and so having your own media entity means now you've got this treasure trove of content going out, but you've now got this infrastructure that you didn't have when you were selling off all the rights. So as a football association, that must be a real leg up now for you, for your other purpose for part of a football association, which is to serve the greater good of football and support grassroots football. How is that infrastructure play now that you've got this media company and things like studios and all the infrastructure there? Has that helped the Football Association from a grassroots point of view and reaching players out there?
Well, that one is a real sort of revolution, because the vision for Norwegian Football Association is football for all, so it's football for everyone, and we're a top of the league in UEFA's grassroots, all this sort of stuff. So what we've done, one thing is that we've developed it has to be an app, but a mobile service where we now make available all match fixtures. There's over 300,000 games played in a season here at grassroots level. So they're all available. You just select your favorite team or teams from whatever level, right down to the lowest age group in boys and girls. And all the available data, the fixtures, the locations, the trainer details. Next thing is to add in carpool, which seems to be quite a popular request. But that's all available now. We did it with one of our sponsors, the insurance company. So it's a direct link into the injury telephone that basically pays for the whole service. So that's a great thing about sports marketing now. As you say, people are looking for way more than exposure. They're looking for engagement and looking for activity. We have this in a country the size of Norway with a population of 5 million. We have over, say, 400,000 active players, and the downloads for that app now are just approaching 300,000. Mostly parents and players, and the usage is really high during the season. Obviously, it takes off dramatically when the first fixture lists are coming out, and then we see a peak towards the weekend when most fixtures are on. But that's one thing. So that app is there, and has been a big success for us. We came on the podium at least for a UEFA Marketing Award because it really tied together the ability to address grassroots and to please one of our major sponsors. The other things we're doing in there is we have a media asset management system called Media Bank, where all of our content, everything that we produce, and now more and more the grassroots stuff from the trainers, from the youth team development, all the video, all the logging and tagging of it, all goes into a central bucket that we can use, and we can package that and do fairly nice things with it. And then the last thing that we've done is a big, huge project now called Eat, Move, Sleep, where we're looking at taking out the grassroots, the sort of the knowledge that comes at top-level football for how to be a 24-hour athlete, and bringing that out to grassroots. And that goes from everything from the nutrition aspects, how you, what sort of foods to eat, what sort of foods not to eat, how to do proper training. And the new element then is really the sleep part, restitution and rest. And the primary platform for that is all digital, and it's all based on the knowledge that we have from being a media company. And we've went to the sponsor and said, hey, we have our own green screen studio. Just bring your people in here. We'll make top-class broadcast content and be able to get it out there onto the couple of 100,000 people who already have this MyFootball app. It's a direct route to them. So as you say, it has a very much a halo effect, and it trickles down from elite football to grassroots, which again means that we recruit more people, we keep them longer, which hopefully means that we have a better media product at the elite level as well, and we definitely want to have better players coming through. So it's certainly a strategy that is so far being very positive for us.
It's very similar to my chat with Jesper Nyholm. He's in Denmark and working with the Danish Olympic Committee. Done similar stuff in that space, sort of tapping into the health benefits of reaching more people. So very similar in that Eat, Move, Sleep program that you're rolling out. But I think the main thing is with the grassroots is a lot of people in digital and social media looking to develop a community. And in fact, in a club-based system with people out there playing, you've already got that community. So if you can build a infrastructure to engage them, you will get those high usage rates, and you will get those people, opening the app and engaging with the app. So it's it's providing a really good service for those clubs that they want to be connected. They want to know what the results are of other teams, and the fact that you're putting in things like carpooling into a grassroots app is ideal.
Yeah, and I think, as you say, they wanted it, and there was initial sort of skepticism. They'd always done things a different way, but as soon as you get, all the parents, all the trainers starting to really cry out for new features and stuff, you've done something right, because the key for that grassroots thing, I think, is to make daily football life easier. Just making those coordination things really easier, simple knowledge. We're not going to overload it with too many features. It's going to be a better pencil sharpener kind of strategy. So where am I playing? We use Google mapping services now just to do that. If there's a parent who's going to a pitch that hasn't been pinned before, it allows you to do that. The next stage is because grassroots has, as you know, a lot of issues with referees, just getting them to turn up. The refs can sort of volunteer. They can pick and choose the games that they want to turn up for. Parents can start to report the score. Everybody's registered, so there's a sort of a built-in quality check mechanism into it. And so it starts to do those things of building the actual the grassroots game to just be very, very easy. And the kids take it for granted, and that's the cool thing. And then the next stage for them is to start to say, okay, where do we have video training banks? How do we do these exercises that have been PDFs or paper-based before, that it'll all go out to a pad, and the trainer can just show them to it. He can show them a clip from either national team game or a club game where they're actually doing something, and then they can build the exercise themselves. So it sort of reinforces itself.
Well, thank you very much for coming on the podcast. One last thing, what were some of your key takeaways from Seat London?
The first one was it was really good. One of the best conferences I've ever been to, actually, because of the amount of it was great openness. It was very specific, very relevant in that. And then from the actual speakers, just to see the enormous amount of development that actually is going on. It's huge. And that makes it really important to share this knowledge. I was particularly impressed by what's going on in Madison Square Gardens, how quick they are able to change that venue around from, being whether it's hockey or cycling or a concert, and to have that flexibility is really a great pointer for us. And lots of the other stories as well, to see how people are getting this, as you say, much more going from digital stunts to being strategy and to being experience-led. And I guess the key takeaway of the whole lot is that working with sports, we have something unique that's precious. And it's that relationship with our fans that brands would just cry out for. And we have to understand that more than ever, that we now have this ability to interact directly with them. We have the ability to give them what we talk about is both meaning and emotion. So emotional experiences is the real big one for us, and I think that was all over Seat. So yeah, it was very good.
Well, thank you very much. I hope to see you at a future event, and I'll be keeping an eye on all things Norwegian football media. You can send Pearse a tweet. Pearse is one of the few people I know that's actually got his first name as his Twitter handle, Pearse. Send Pearse a tweet, tell him you're listening, and thanks for coming on the podcast.
You're very welcome. It's been great, Sean. Thank you very much.
Sign up for the Sports Geek News at sportsgeekhq.com/SGN.
Thanks again to Pearse Connolly from Norwegian Football Association. Make sure you send Pearse a tweet, and please tweet anybody who you are listening to on the podcast, just to tell them that you are listening. His Twitter handle, as I said in the interview, is his first name, Pearse. Send him a tweet and tell him that you listen to the podcast. You can find the podcast at sportsgeekhq.com/88. And please, if you would, share it with your LinkedIn colleagues, with your Twitter friends, and with your Facebook friends. It does help the message get out there. And please, if you want to join in the conversation, we're having really good backwards and forwards and banter with people who are guests and people who are listeners in the Sports Geek Podcast Facebook group. If you just go to facebook.com/groups/sportsgeek, put in a request, or simply send me an email, Sean at sportsgeekhq.com. Happy to add people in. As I said, it's a good place to have a little bit of banter and a bit of conversation around it. Big thank you to everyone who's sent in and who's submitted an iTunes review. We're up to 69 iTunes reviews worldwide. So thank you for the people who've done that. You can simply go to sportsgeekhq.com/iTunes after your run, after your drive, after your walk, when you get back to your computer. I really do appreciate the reviews. Read them all. If you could email me and tell me which that you have and what your handle is. Unfortunately, a lot of people send in iTunes reviews without names, so I can't actually thank the people that have left them. The last one, all things going quite well and moving along quite quickly for SEAT. Really excited to be taking a lot more Australians there, but spoke to Christine and Kylie earlier this week. Registrations are coming along swimmingly. And don't forget, I'm looking for your terrific campaigns, especially ones that have connected your fans to your stadium and the stadium experience and experiencing your game, your sport, your team through a venue. So my theme of my presentation for SEAT this year is online, offline, and looking at connecting that experience. How can we connect the fan experience in the stadium to the digital fans and grow and amplify that footprint? So if you've done anything in a stadium, and it doesn't have to be super high tech, it can just be something that really activates your fans, allows them to use digital in some way, and they might not do it in the stadium, they might do it later. Anything in that sort of space. I'm obviously going to be leaning on my Sports Geek podcast guests, as I did last year. If you haven't got the ebook, again, sign up for the Sports Geek News or send me an email and I'll send it to you. Really looking forward to putting that together and putting a few case studies around the online, offline. So please, if you've done something this year and the last year, or even if you're planning to do something, please let me know. I'd love to include some of the concepts and some of the campaigns of you, people who are listening and supporting the podcast. You can simply go to sportsgeekhq.com/SEAT 2015 to find out all info that around my involvement with SEAT. There's links there to click through and register for SEAT. It's going to be an absolute cracker in July in San Francisco, touring a stadium like Levi Stadium. Great sessions for both the Monday and Tuesday, and then finishing off the event with a game of softball at AT&T Park. And I am already made the commitment as part of the digital team as I am not going to be bothering with a glove. In Australia, cricketers don't need a glove, so I'm going to show you a few barehanded catches. So if you are heading to SEAT, please let me know. Love to make sure if we have not connected, we connect before then. But be sure to follow SEAT Conference on Twitter and also on Facebook for more updates from that. Until next time, my name is Sean Callanan from Sports Geek, and you've been listening to the Sports Geek Podcast.
Please leave a review on iTunes. Go to sportsgeekhq.com/iTunes. Did you know Sports Geek Podcast has listeners in over 50 countries? Thank you for sharing. Like the Sports Geek Podcast? Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/sportsgeek. Thank you for listening to the Sports Geek Podcast.